Hi, I want to welcome everybody to the 2020-21 Test Security and Confidentiality Training for Temple ISD. I'm glad you all can attend. I know some of you might be asking why indeed you're invited to this training, and really it's because we all do our part during our testing timeframes to make sure that our testing environments are secure and that the information that are on those tests remain confidential. So our bus drivers, we know that you hear our students talking on the bus. Our school nutrition maintenance employees. We know that you might be at a campus on the day of testing. And so we just want to bring an awareness about testing to all of our district employees because it is going to take all of us to make sure that we do make sure that all of the protocols are followed for our test on each of our campus. So today we're going to focus on test security and confidentiality. We're going to look at some irregularities that you might be able to look for, listen for when you're on a campus or when you're around our students. And also, we're going to pay very close attention to those oaths. Our oaths, please note that I did send an email about your oaths. It sent the link to the oath that you need to sign, and it also gave a description on what parts you would need to initial along with our district code. So when it comes to the oaths, please make sure that you're referring back to that email. So for those of you who are participating in this training today, but you might actually be a proctor on a test during our testing windows, please note that this does not take the place of that test-specific training. If you do indeed act as a proctor on a campus, then you must attend that campus-specific training and sign a new oath. So test security, really we're just trying to preserve the integrity of all the test contents. We don't want those contents to get out in any way, shape, or form to provide an unfair advantage to some students. It's just important that everybody has that equal opportunity to do their very best on the test. We need to make sure that we're securing our materials before, during, and after testing. And so because of this, we have to train on what that might look like on each campus. And each campus does do it a little bit differently. So again, this is just an awareness about what it might look like, sound like on a campus as a whole. So that's why you will also sign your oath to say you understand what that test security and what confidentiality does look like and sound like. So secure documents. Any test booklet, any answer document that has been filled out, those are secure. Our online test tickets, we do have them for STAR and for TELPAS. That has very secure information on it, so those need to be secure as well. Our testing calibration activities, those are secure. And so are our holistic rating for our student performance. Those rosters need to be secure. They cannot be lying about. Our STAR Alt 2 image cards, our secure administration manual, our secure test booklets, basically anything that says STAR, STAR Alt 2, TELPAS, TELPAS Alt, and it has a barcode, that definitely is a secure item. So we just want to make sure that we don't see those unsecure at any point in time during a testing time frame or at all. So confidentiality, this really just kind of hones in again on just protecting the contents of our secure test materials. We do not want to talk about it. Our motto through testing really is, and it's been my motto for decades, is just let it go. You know, it is what it is. We don't want to talk about it. We do our very best to prepare our students for the test. Let them take the test. Let the state score it and let us get the results. But there's no need to talk about it in the interim between those time frames. So real important to just make sure that we are understanding what securing those materials look like, what it means also to just maintain that confidentiality of the test content. And again, that's why we will sign those oaths. So we do not want anybody to talk about the test. We don't want them to reveal like, oh, hey, that question, that one looked really hard. We also know that we don't want to say, wow, you know, Johnny just took forever on that test and, you know, he didn't write hardly anything. These are the type of conversations that we know we cannot be having during the testing windows. We do have some test administrators, though, that have to give that test orally to our students. And so they're reading contents of that test. And so they are able to view that secure content. They're just not able to talk about it. They do sign an additional component of our oath to state that they will not talk about what they've read. And any deviation from that is an irregularity. It's a serious irregularity. And so that's why our proctors who do those oral administrations, they are given an additional training so that they are fully prepared for those testing environments. So again, before, during, after, we don't talk about it. We don't view it. We don't even ask kids, hey, how'd the test go? All we can do is just like, do your best, do the best that you can. But we don't say, hey, how did it go? What was the prompt? We don't ask about it. And that's really goes back to the motto, just it is what it is. We don't need to discuss it with them. And obviously, you see that third bullet there, that we are not able to change any responses or instruct a student to do so. Unfortunately, across our state, there has been incidents of this, definitely not in Temple ISD, but enough to make sure that the state wants an awareness brought about that. And again, we can't duplicate or retain any student compositions from the writing components of the test. We always want to be prepared for a visit from TEA. If they do, we welcome it. We do great things here in Temple, but sometimes they do like to come see what our practices are among our districts. So we want to make sure that if they do come to our campuses, we will welcome them and they will be able to see the great things that we do. So violations of test security and confidentiality. Any departure, any deviation from the procedures that are defined by TEA can result in a testing irregularity. And so we need to make sure that if we do see something that we're like, I'm not sure, it is our responsibility to report that to the campus testing coordinator. Because if it is a violation, then obviously that needs to be reported to me. So serious violations. As you look at these, you can see a common thread. There was intentionality behind these violations. I mean, tampering with student responses. I mean, that's a conscious decision someone makes to deviate from what the expectation is involving test security and confidentiality. As we go through, if it's telepass and teachers are sharing answers through calibration, again, that's a serious violation. So when you look at this, the way that TEA views these serious violations is that they're malicious. It's malicious intent. That's one thing they ask is, is it malicious intent? And, that's a very harsh word, but knowingly doing something wrong is making a poor choice. And so there are consequences for that. And so I do want to point out that second to the last bullet. Sometimes cheating might occur. It has occurred across the state. Again, we do our very best here in Temple ISD. But if a proctor knowingly is reading a newspaper or reading a book and not watching the students, again, you can see that that's a conscious decision. We know we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to proctor the students. And so that's why that falls under a serious violation. Again, not an exhausted list, but we want to really refrain from making any of these poor choices. So this slide is a little scary because it says everything needs to be reported to TEA, and really it starts with reporting it to your campus testing coordinator. You might be asked to write a statement about what you saw, what you heard, and then they will contact me and I will contact TEA. So it's nothing that you have to do, but TEA is very explicit on what the protocol will need to be. And if there is a serious testing violation, then that does need to be reported to them. So when a violation occurs, there will be statements, very involved statements too. They don't want just bullets. They want a dissertation of what occurred, and very important that we get all individuals involved. And that's why it's very important for you to understand that if you overhear someone talking about a test, and not just like, wow, my feet hurt, but again, just really detailed information about what the test looked like, what it sounded like, you will be asked to write a statement as well as all parties involved. So we need to make sure that it is extremely detailed. And the same goes for the students. If students were involved, we might need to obtain some statements from them as well. But again, you are doing the reporting. You would not go this far, but this is as far as it will go. If there is a serious violation, we will get all parties to write statements, and there will be an investigation. So TISD, we do have an incident report form that will need to be filled out. Again, like I said, they want clearly outlined sequence of events, exactly what happened, what people said, what people heard. They want what did they do. I mean, very detailed. And then also we need to have a corrective action plan as to how can we prevent this in the future. So these are what our forms look like. Again, you will not be filling out the corrective action plan if that is indeed needed. But if there is an incident, the incident report form will need to be filled out. And so just so that you're aware of what that will look like. Sometimes kids might be caught cheating, and if so, there is a locally determined disciplinary action form. If this does occur, again, there will be an investigation by the CTC. So if it is something that you hear that kids were talking about how which is crazy because they don't have the same forms, but if they were looking at each other's test and trying to help each other out, obviously if they didn't have the same forms, they would not be giving correct answers. But again, that would be denoted as cheating. So we want to make sure that we do report that to the CTC, and the CTC will do an investigation. If it is determined that the student did cheat, then unfortunately their test will be scored O for other, and that will really hit our high school students pretty hard, because if they're taking those EOCs, which count for their graduation, they don't want to get an O. They want it to be scored and they want to pass. And so we do take cheating very seriously. But on the other hand, we want to make sure that if a student has a cell phone, and this is something that, it can happen in today's society, our cell phones are connected to our students' hips. If a student does not turn in their phone, it doesn't mean they can't get in trouble by the campus. I mean, that is something that I do want to put out there. But if they did not use that phone to cheat, then their test will not be coded an other. And so that's why that investigation is so important. So penalties for the serious test violations. This is when my heart kind of stops, because this is what we're trying to prevent. We're educators, and we work in a school district, and we love what we do, and we don't want to take any chances. This test is not worth losing our jobs over. And so as you can see, serious violations, minimum 1 year suspension, Class C misdemeanor, invalidating our students' test result. How horrible would that be if we had to say their test scores don't count? Lowering our accreditation status, our accountability ratings, sanctions, revocations. We really want to make sure that we are doing everything that we can. And that's why we're bringing an awareness about across the whole district of what test security and confidentiality looks like and sounds like on our campuses during our testing timeframes. So referrals to SBEC. A minimum 1 year suspension of an educator's license when he or she is accused of a serious testing violation and that case is referred to SBEC. A minimum 1 year suspension. Again, that's why, it is what it is. We truly just need to let it go. Previously referred cases include a 1 year suspension for providing direct or indirect assistance, 2 year suspension for reviewing student test responses, identifying incorrect answers. It's that last one, revocation for helping students solve problems and using voice inflection and facial expressions during an oral administration. And that's why it's so critical to make sure that we do that oral administration training for our proctors who will be given a test in that type of testing setting. So serious repercussions if a serious violation has been made. But we do have the other end of the spectrum. We do have procedural testing irregularities as well. And so these are our monitoring irregularities, just accommodation errors, eligibility errors, improper accounting for secure materials. Some of these you will not see because if you're not a proctor, you will not notice if it was an accommodation error. You will not notice if it was an eligibility error. These are things that you would not notice unless you're a testing proctor. So we're not going to go over those in detail, but it is important that you know what each might look like. So monitoring irregularities. If you're there and you're fixing something on the campus and you see a testing proctor walk out of the classroom and the kids are testing and they're out in the hall, they're not monitoring the kids. So that's very easy to spot. Things that you would not notice is if they deviated from the testing manual. So when you look at this, you can see, well, what can I notice? And really it's if the testing proctor left the kids, that is something that you would notice. You would notice cell phones out. And again, that is something that is not allowed on those testing days. Accommodation errors, like I said, you would not readily notice that unless you were a proctor. And the same applies for eligibility errors. You would not notice that as well unless you were a proctor. But you will notice if booklets are lying about, if they're not locked up secure, if you see a bucket of test on a desk and no one is around it. Those are the type of things that you will notice. And so it's important that you have that full understanding that that has to be secured, especially those with those barcodes. Those are the easiest to spot. But if it's a test administrator manual that is not barcoded, those are not secure materials, only when it comes to the Star Alt 2. So now we'll get into the part of the oaths. Our oaths, there's really two different kinds. The first one is filled out by the superintendents, chief administration officers, and also myself. And we actually fill those out online, and there's two parts. We'll do one now, and then those parties will actually have to fill out a closing one at the end of the year. But for everyone else, there's the general oath of test security, and you will fill this out. And so I really just want to point out, please go back to the email that I send to you because it will tell you which oath you fill out, and it's pretty easy to know which one you need to fill out based upon our roles, but also what parts of the oath you will fill out. I want to make sure that you understand you don't have to sign every box on that oath because you're not trained to that degree. So this training really just encompassed your test security and confidentiality. But if you do choose as a department to train your team as a group, that's fine. Just please let me know. So when I'm looking for if they viewed it or not, I will know they viewed it under your profile. And remember, we have to be viewing this video in its entirety. So until the very end, because it does log how many minutes you viewed. So we want to make sure that you view the entire training. Again, I will need an oath from everyone. And if you send it electronically, sometimes there is that you click the boxes and you think you sent it electronically, but it's blank. So please make sure that you do the fillable PDF so that way you can send that to me. If not, just send me a paper copy through the interoffice mail. This does conclude our training. Again, if you have any questions, you are welcome to give me a call at 215-6824, or you can email me at dawn.sills@tisd.org. Thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for making sure that we have a great testing situations on our campus during the 2021 school year. Thank you.